And a very good day, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you may be joining us from. I'm Alan Furmanski. I'm a Director of Product Management with the Citrix Product Management team. I've been at Citrix over 15 years in various roles, and in my current role, our team looks after such areas as the Linux VDA, which we'll be covering here today. We also look after topics like the VDA upgrade service. So we actually did a CUGC webinar on that a few months back. You can go ahead and check the recording. We look after long-term service release, DaaS standard, remote PC access, and various other areas. So really excited to be with you all here today. And we also have our colleague, Terry. Do you want to introduce yourself, Terry?
Yeah, I'm Terry Hou, the Linux VDA Product Manager, and I work with Alan and to deliver this Linux VDA. I'm very happy to join this session and deliver the best practice and use case to all the audience.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead, we'll jump right in. We've got quite a bit of content, as was mentioned. Let's try to keep it interactive. Let us know of any questions or comments that you may have. All right. So we'll go ahead and kick things off with the famous Linux Penguin, otherwise known as Tux. And it's amazing to think that Linux has been around for over 3 decades now, when it was first introduced in the early 90s. And back then, it was an early concept of sorts. It's evolved quite a bit over the years among various distributions, through various groups and channels. I remember working with Linux in my days of primary school and in university, doing Linux Install Fest, creating LAMP stacks, and just trying to see whatever old piece of hardware we can install the Linux operating system on. And nowadays, with the various distributions that we have and the maturity of the platform, Linux is so capable in so many different areas, including in the EUC space, as we'll be discussing here today. So Citrix has been doing Linux remoting for the better part of a decade now, right? So a long time. And I would venture to say that many of you joining us here today are curious about the Linux offering. You're likely a Citrix customer, and you could be running DaaS, or you could be running CVAT on premises, or maybe both. And you want to see what Linux can do for your organization. So as you can see here, destination hybrid. You've heard this in other webinars, and this is very much our strategy and our focus. When we say hybrid, we mean hybrid clouds, hybrid platforms. We're talking about hyperconverged infrastructures, hybrid approach to accessing resources across both the traditional storefront portal as well as the cloud delivered workspace portal. And then the various Citrix cloud services that we deliver on demand from our management plane, or your own customer managed IT CVAT deployments. Now, when it comes to the actual workloads, right, what we're delivering, Linux is a part of that. And you can deliver Linux from a variety of distributions, as we'll show. You can do single session, you can do multi-session, and there's a lot of great capabilities. You can even do physical systems. So I think with the mindset of what Linux can do for your organization as we go along with today's content, the various use cases, personas, and how you can get started. All right, so what do we have for the agenda today, Terry? What are we going to be covering?
Yeah, so this is the agenda. I will cover the use cases and the best practice, and follow with the key features which support those use case. And I will do a demonstration, then hand it to Alan to wrap up, and James for QA. Yeah, so let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first page should just explain the key Linux VDA use case. So the very famous, the first one is the knowledge workers. So typically for developers and some high performance computing. So this one is popular in the technology, finance, education vertical. So the key thing is to concern about the IP protection and the high performance, high efficiency. And then you look at the second and third is about the electronic design, EDA, and manufacturing. So it's used for some chip design, manufacturing, and also for those like auto OEM. They use it to design some cars, and the oil, gas, and those vertical uses to design some heavy equipment. And the last one actually is the most popular and potential scenario is safe TCO. Yeah, you know that Linux is high performance and they save a lot of the Windows license, those things. So the typical application is the browser. So now today, lots of things can run through the browser. And this had happened in like public sector, retail, finance, education, healthcare. So actually is for every vertical. So we'll start from the first one, the use case. So for developers, how many developers there? Here we can find this EDC report. So let's talk about like 25 million plus developers all over the world. And it's growing, and it's got like 27, 28 million. So among of those developers, how many developers are using Linux? So let's see.
That's a great question, Terry. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see though. This is actually a survey by JetBrains, and they since survey about 30,000 people. Yeah, so and over the last 5 years, the Linux is the second largest operating system for developers. It's 47%. And then we can do a very simple math. So 25 and 47, then it's 12 million Linux developers. Yeah. So yeah, why those developers, they love Linux? Obviously, we can see it's for high security. Yeah. So there's no virus. You don't need to install antivirus software in a Linux system. Yes, and don't need not to worry about the vulnerability. Those things happen. Frequently in other operating systems. And there are a lot of powerful programming tools for Linux developers. And obviously, it's high performance. It can use a lot of tools to make the task automation. And you can customize your desktop, customize your environment. Even you can customize the kernel. Yeah. So, and Linux provide a lot of useful error message. For VDA, yeah. So as we survey the serve many customers or many users, so booting is important because if you need update some service or install some applications, definitely if without rebooting, you'll get a lot of benefits here.
Yeah, and those are some really good points here, Terry. So first of all, we have 12 million developers. That's a lot of developers, and they're developing apps for web, for Android, for different platforms. Security, right? That's top of mind for everyone. Linux being open source and using a privileged architecture, it really is secure by design. The concept of performance, right? So Linux often performs better with similar hardware and VM specs when you compare it to Windows machines, and that's with or without GPUs. And then, yeah, the rebooting part, right? Because I mean, how nice is it to install software and not have to reboot, right? And that's including the VDA software as well. We know on the Windows side, it will require one reboot or possibly two if it's a server and you have to install the RDS role. So yeah, a lot of great advantages for Linux.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so this one gives a very comprehensive solution for secure development over the Linux VDA. So we can start from the left side. So based on our stable, so you get a lot of different stable, Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, a lot of stable. So you can access from any hardware and anywhere to access to the Linux VDA to develop your software, and multiple monitors, and you can insert the peripherals, plug and play. And in terms of the security, we support this multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. Everyone loves this one. Username, password, smart card, fast, both solutions, we support it. And then the HDX is the core for Citrix. Yes. So through this HDX, we only transfer the graphics from the desktop to the client. So it means no code will be transferred to clients. It's the protects your code, so no data leakage. And we transfer the keyboard, mouse click, audio, video, BCR, all those things is under control. Yeah. So if we talk about control, so let's look this part. Look at this part. We have this kind of policy control in either the on-prem deployment or Citrix DaaS. So you can control, for example, for clipboard, you can control is alone in one direction or two directions. You can control the size, you can control the format, and file, USB, printer, browser content. So all those things is configurable through the policy. And then if you look at these two VDAs, the first one illustrates that typical developer use case. So for example, Android Studio, Docker, VS Code, IntelliJ. So those development tools are common in Linux development environment. And also we can use this Chrome or Firefox to access many browser-based application. And you can install another CW inside of a VDA, which calls double hop. You can double hop to another virtual desktop or application, typically maybe Windows. And typically for developers, it's a single session, and the customer will use NFS to host the home directory for the developers. Then even the VDA roaming to another VM, then they can mount the home on the fly to keep that kind of like a profile roaming. And then if you look at this one, this is about the 3D graphic use case. So Nvidia GPU is there, and we have some, for example, the beta, and I saw the software for the car design, and yeah, so this is a popular use case. And then if you look at these three features, so we can protect the IP by session watermark, and for Linux, we have this it's in tech preview session recording feature. So if you think this is necessary, you can test it. And session sharing is important to developers. They can share their screen among of the team. So it's within the local network, within the VDA network. So you do not need to leverage like Teams, Zoom, those collaboration software, and you can get higher resolution with this screen sharing. Yeah, so no data leakage to client side, and very secure development solution.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing, Terry, is that I think the takeaway is that you can easily integrate Linux VDA within your existing deployment, right? Whether you're on premises or whether you're DaaS, you can use very similar policy controls for things like the virtual channels, as you mentioned. So yeah, easy to get started within your existing deployment.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, can I just jump in there? You mentioned
Go for it.
mapping the $home in NFS. Was that essentially, you know, allowing you to do kind of almost a kind of profile management sort of thing around them? Because that's one of the questions that always comes up, right? Can you do like a kind of non-persistent profile side of things in Linux? Because it's one thing that Windows people find a bit confusing.
Yeah, there isn't a real profile management concept in Linux, but this NFS-based shared storage which give the similar features to Linux. Yeah.
And can you do like proper, you know, non-persistent, as in, you know, when you restart you restart your target devices, your VDAs, and they go back to the, you know, the sort of golden state? You can do that exact same stuff in Linux, right?
It depends on the your NFS solution. Actually, you can write some code to mapping the home with your NFS link and the login user on the fly. Then you mount the correct storage to the VDA.
Yeah. Or are you referring to the image itself, James? Like just
Yeah, you know, the two.
that...
I was doing both of them,
Yeah.
so the profile management side and the image itself, right? Because a lot of people, you know, think of non-persistent as just it
Correct.
resets when you reboot it. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So we do have the concept of non-persistent with Linux VDA, and we support it across our two provisioning solutions, right? So MCS and PVS, you can use Linux.
I mean, this is one that, you know, you'll have a lot of Windows admins coming to Linux, right? Especially, you know, with the development community kind of getting their own way these days.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of know the answer to this because I've done a lot of it myself. But what would you say to somebody who comes along deploying a Linux VDI and says, all I have is config manager for managing my software, right? I know it's not Citrix's sort of place, but, you know, what's the sort of advice you would give people with that sort of question who are just used to using SCCM to manage their software?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I'll give my take and feel free, Terry and Johnny. We've seen a lot of increased adoption in solutions like, like your Ansible, Chef, Puppet, and those kinds of, configuration solutions to ensure that customers have the right software and configuration enforcement across their effectively, dedicated type systems, right? For developers, making sure they have everything that they need.
Yes, and as Ellen mentioned, so because in the Linux shop, there are lots of this open source stuff, and so we can, lots of customer leverage this stuff like Ansible, as Ellen mentioned, to do this environment management, package upgrade, etc.
Okay, I mean, I have looked into these things, and there's all sorts of things out there that people use kind of for the Linux repositories like Nexus and ProGet and Cloudsmith and things like that, right? It's just, I think it would be good for, maybe Citrix to put something together around that, because, Windows admins are just that used to doing Windows things, right? So it might be nice to say, something just to get them pointed in the right direction when it comes to Linux management. But thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great feedback, James, right? Because, traditionally in the EUC space and with Citrix, we live in the Windows world, right? And the admins maybe don't have as much experience with Linux or with the tool set or open source community, or they were doing a specific task in Windows, right? So how do you do that on the Linux side? Yeah, I think that's great feedback and things that we can look to really up level across documentation, videos, tech zone, and other collateral.
Cool, cheers.
Yeah, no, appreciate the questions.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I move to next use case about the graphics intensive workload. So if you look at this one, it's stand for like the animations, gaming, movie, and also the CAE, CAD design. And for the right side, it's about a generic browser, when you're browsing the internet or some training content. So here we have some best practice for it. Actually, the table looks a little bit complicated, but if you look at this one, animation and moving, gaming, so the content need a high FPS for fluent, and because normally it's like full screen, and the graphic is highly changing, and you will need extremely low latency and high bandwidth. So in this case, we recommend you can test this with video codec full screen, and it will adapt to like H.264 or 265 lossless video codec, or non-lossless like quality high. And then for CAD on CAE design, so because you just need the very precise lines and precise display whatever you need. And so in this case, you don't need really high FPS to refresh your screen. So we just need to use the symbol lossless. It's based on the image encoding, and then it gets the very clear and precise screen. And then if you have a mix like video and image and text, then it may be interesting in this selective H.264. So the program will check which part is the highly changing area. Then we can use the video codec for the selective, and then for the image and text, we use the symbol lossless symbol encoding, and to keep it sharp. Yeah, and in some cases that like low bandwidth and high latency, so we recommend just use them static encoding, and we do have a feature called graphic slider, so it can enable it to your user, and let the user decide the video quality, the image quality, and the responsive. So this is the best practice for 3D and the general graphics scenario.
Yeah, and I just want to call it a couple things here, Terry. Firstly, this is exclusive content. This is not something that we have posted publicly, and I think that speaks to the value of being able to do these kinds of webinars. This is ongoing testing, and I want to say kudos to the engineering and test teams that go through the validation here. We do plan to post this publicly at some point in the future, but we wanted to give everyone here the inside scoop around what is the latest on the prescriptive recommendations. So feel free to screenshot and leverage this content, but I did kind of want to mention that. And yeah, so regardless of what you're doing or any kind of workload that's being delivered from high-end 3D applications, high frame rates, high resolutions to more general purpose knowledge worker, we have all the recommendations covered.
Yeah, okay, and then out of the vGPU scenario, this is a kind of not vGPU, so typically it's remote PC and GPU pass-through. So consider that you have some workstation with Nvidia or other GPU, then you can also connect them to Citrix with CVAD solution or DaaS, and then it gets remote access to this remote PC. So you can check the product document and check the Nvidia document to see which cards support this remote PC. We use this capture SDK. So if you look at this test, the content originally is 60 FPS, so we'll get 56 very close to the original content. Yeah. Okay, then we move to use case 3. Potential published application on Linux. This diagram came from Citrix internal BI system. So we just list the published Windows application ranking by number of customers. So interestingly, if you look at the names, there's the kind of like Microsoft Office, Chrome, remote desktop connections. The thing about that, if we mapping them with Linux, so you see those logos and Firefox, Chrome, G Suite, LibreOffice, a bunch of remote desktop solution. So all those works well in Linux world. Yeah. So why we only use?
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I was just going to say, Terry, that the previous slide was probably my favorite slide in the whole deck because, right, a lot of times customers think, oh, well, I don't have any Linux applications, so the Linux VDA is not for me. And then you kind of look at what are the top published applications that we see across our customer base. And every single one of these applications here either has a version that'll run on Linux or there's a Linux equivalent. Even something like SQL Server Management Studio, right, from Microsoft. Microsoft has the Azure Data Studio, I believe, that will run on Linux. So yeah, there's a lot of potential that you can take advantage of with Linux, because we know it's ultimately about the apps at the end of the day.
Yeah, so why don't we give this speaker a chance? So you can consider that native Linux applications, browser-based applications, or you can use the double hop to Windows published apps, or you can use it as a jump box to other systems. So yeah, this is a running program that starts, I think the kickoff today or yesterday. So
yeah, very fresh.
Very fresh. Yeah, this is the first hand. The first slide for this. Actually, Citrix Ready program is not new. Yeah, so but for Linux, it's new. We have a lot of success for stories with partners on Windows world. So we want to leverage the same program for Linux and to build a Linux ecosystem. And definitely for partners, you get the benefits to leverage Citrix Ready to make your business growing. And yeah, you can scan the code, join this program. And we believe this will day by day to increase our Linux partner and build a good ecosystem.
Definitely. Yeah, let us know those top apps that you're using or plan to use within Linux. We're glad to work with the software vendors to have them part of our ecosystem.
Okay, then for the use cases, a summary. It's really the first-hand information, the best practice we learned from our real customers. So actually, I talk with a lot of customers and I send a survey to them. This is the response, and we confirmed with them during the online session or visit. And you see that like the finance vertical, so financial vertical, they use it for offshore software deployment, for testing training. You see that they use IntelliJ ID, VS Code, Docker, Ansible, those famous development tools or automation tool. Yeah. So the primary reason why they use like they really like the secure access, very like they can protect IP, especially when during the work from home or some offshore software developers all over the world. Yeah. And definitely this Linux is efficient and they can save a lot of cost compared with Windows. And also we have customer auto manufacturing. They use this answer for 3D intensive development. And this is the higher education, actually is a university. They leverage Linux VDA to teach the students, and they also do some scientist research. And they use like MATLAB, Python, Classroom, AutoCAD, those software based on this Linux platform. Yeah. And the next one is interesting, like is the safety TCO scenario. So especially the last one, they use Linux to save cost to provide if end of life device to access to internet just for email and some daily job while the publisher, the browser. Yeah, so it can protect the legacy investment and extend their life. Okay, so let's move to the key features to see how Citrix Linux VDA can support those business use case. This page looks very busy, yeah? So I don't want to go through all the details, but I just really want to emphasize like first, there are a lot of choice for our customer. Yeah, so if you look at this, we cover all the delivery types and those many public cloud and hypervisor we support through with this Linux VDA. And it was later I'll show you how we support the different distributions, domain join, non-domain join, user authentication. And if you look at this column, is mostly talk about the HDX experience. So I can just say one word that today Linux VDA has very similar HDX feature with Windows. So we spent a few years to catch up, make the feature parity. Now we can say this is almost the same with Windows. Okay, then let's move to some details.
Yeah, let's look at the distributions, always a popular topic.
Yeah, so for our knowledge, so we get from our customer, Ubuntu and Red Hat family are the most famous distributions. So we always catch up with the Ubuntu long-term support release, and every 2 years we will support the latest one. Now it's 2204. And for Red Hat, actually, apparently there are 3 major releases, yeah, 7.9, 8, and 9. Yeah. And Rocket Linux is a kind of free Red Hat. Also, it's a replacement to CentOS 8 after the acquisition. And so for this one, we are very busy. For every 6 months, we get a release for a major, another release for a major release. So you mean every half year we get 2, one for 8, one for 9. Yeah, so we'll catch up, but we really recommend you to stay with the even number because there is a program called EOS, extended update support, so only apply to the even number. And Debian, SUSE, and Amazon as are the other operating system. They have their own customers, like public sector, like some European customers. Yeah. So here I have a blog to talk about all those methodology or philosophy, how we catch up those Linux distributions. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code to read this blog. Okay, then we talk about the machine identity type. So basically here for Linux VDA, 2 solutions are available, applicable to Windows, to Linux. One is the AD domain join. So this is very similar as the Windows part. So we join the AD and with those protocols, and then we get the VDI authenticated in the AD as kind of machine management, and then the user also join the authenticated to the Linux VDA through the AD authentication. This is the typical use case before the non-DOM join come. And then yeah, apparently some customers do not like joining AD because in Linux world AD is kind of stranger. So and then here for non-domain join, we can join Linux VDA. To nothing, to not join to any domain, but we are managed by MCS creation. And here we list some identity platform. It means for workspace login. So you can still use those identity platform to log in the user, and when the user log into Linux VDA, so we will create a local map user and allow them to SSO to Linux VDA. Yeah, so it's based on your environment and your business case. You can decide flexibility to choose which one is available for you, is suitable for you.
Exactly.
I've actually got a couple of questions about the distributions, which I'm sure you anticipated you would get. Are there Ubuntu variants supported, such as Kubuntu and Lubuntu? I'm not being a Linux person, I'm not familiar with those, but I'm hoping you know what the question refers to.
Honestly, there are lots of distributions. So currently, this is the we see the most famous. So basically, we need some business justification for support new distributions, because every distribution is cost a lot of investment on development and verification. So we are glad to keen to listen to our customers' requirement and make a decision.
Yeah.
Right. There's also a question come in, which is, I know, as I always want another kind of Windowsy one, but is there a multi-session where you can do a Linux VDA,
Yes.
same as you would with an RDSH? All right. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. You can do multi-session to namely, like, the server variant of Linux, as well as one-to-one. You can do you can use it as a DaaS customer. You can use it as an on-premises CVAD customer. So basically any kind of delivery model, like we sort of alluded to earlier on in the presentation, that you do with Windows, you can essentially do with Linux as well.
So does that server version of Linux involve installing some kind of RDSH type of add-on to enable that sort of capability?
No. Linux itself, so when it's born, it's a multi-task, multi-session. So there's no like client or server difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yet another advantage, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, and just getting back to the Ubuntu question real quick, great feedback. Please work with your account teams, work through your partners, so we can help to prioritize these kinds of requests. My understanding is we test explicitly on these Ubuntu versions and the official release, but I do know that there are separate channels, separate variants of it, where they'll have a lighter version of Ubuntu, or ones for like older hardware or specific needs. So while it may work, the official support stance wouldn't be there. But yeah, let's continue to capture all those requests.
I've also got another totally loaded question for you, but it's a title asking, is there a cost saving compared to a Windows VDA, and do you have any analysis around what that's like? Again, it's going to depend on what applications you're running, right? So let's just say, just for a standard setup, maybe it's Office in a browser, right? Is there any cost saving that you would anticipate around that?
Yeah, great question. I'll give my take, and feel free to Terry and Johnny. So, right out of the gate, if you look at any of the major hyperscalers, you'll have like the Linux cost and then the Windows costs, right, for a specific VM instance type, right? So you can kind of compare at that level, and we realize that every customer may have different discounts or promotions that are available with the hyperscalers, right? So there's a savings there in terms of your license savings. But then there are also savings just in terms of performance, right? As we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier around like, hey, if you take a Windows VM of the same spec and compare it to a Linux VM of the same spec, the Linux VM in most cases is going to be more efficient and more responsive. So while I don't, there's so many different kind of combinations and permutations of that that we can kind of look into further. Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I also consider that for the Linux ecosystem, there's a lot of free software and no antivirus software requirements. So they also save a lot of cost, and also consider that the maintenance and operation cost will be saved because, for example, there's no rebooting. There's a lot of automations we can use with Linux. Yeah, that's. But unfortunately, I don't have a number percent. That is generally we can say save a lot of cost.
Yeah, and in many cases, you're working directly with these organizations, right? These distributions and throughout the ecosystem around the service and support, right? So Linux itself is in quotes free, but naturally you need a certain amount of support and various services that either the distributions offer or throughout the ecosystem can be provided. Yeah, good questions.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Right.
Okay, we can talk this specific. The background is so SSO is quite good feature, but in some case, our customer request to disable the SSO. What's the reason? Is one use case is the Linux development environment was kind of isolated from their working environment, so they have some local authentication which only available to Linux. And other scenario is, for example, if the Linux environment protected by smart card, then they do not want the user to log in with the username password, which they log into the workspace and for working environment. So this is the feature I can say we can disable the SSO and to guide the user to log in the Linux with another local authentication or the third-party authentication credentials, so or even the smart card, then it really gets a good flexibility to our customers. And based on this disable SSO, if you are running non-domain join Linux VDA, so we can enable this integration with Azure AD credentials. So when you log into the Linux desktop, so we can guide you to the user to Azure AD authentication, gets the code. I mean, this is enter the code. So if they can go to this Microsoft link, or they can scan this QR code, then enter the code provided by Microsoft, then you can use the Azure AD user to log in Linux desktop. Okay, screen sharing, this is a feature across Linux and Windows. So I already explained this is useful for teamwork, share the screen between among of the colleagues. So I do have a demo video later. We can see how it works. Session watermark to protect the IP, and if you look at this style, and we have two dimensions. One is for content. Yeah, so you can customize those content, which one you want to include in the watermark, and also you can customize the style. So there's a lot of like font transparency, font size. So but this best practice is you should take care of your resource, and especially for multi-session. For example, if you set the style as a tile or horizontal, then it may cost a lot of resource. So enjoy this solution if you really need this. And session recording. So this is still in tech preview, and the current solution, its current session recording already included in the Linux VDA package. So after installation, it's there. You just need to enable it, and then end user will get a prompt, and then you can record the session to a file. Then you can load the files to the existing session recording server, which is running in Windows World. And also you can play back the session recording file in the session recording player. So yeah, this is the Linux VDA joined to the current session recording solution. Okay, move to the admin experience. So this is quite important. So we received a lot of feedback. It's like Linux is quite complicated and it's difficult to deploy, to maintain. So we do, pay attention to those requirements, and we invest a lot in the past few years. And currently, you can deploy Linux VDA with 4 ways. One is use the easy install script. So it's command and it's GUI. But this one majorly we comment for POC because is every time you just install one VDA. Yeah. So if you need to deploy large amount of VDAs, you can use like MCS, and they support AD domain join or non-domain join. Currently, for non-domain join, you have to use MCS. And if you are expert to run the CI/CD, based on the Linux OS, then we do give you a very good document. You can follow document to customize your code. Then this refer to the manual install. Actually, is the automation. Yeah, and we also support this POS. Even it's the rare case, but consider of a very low cost. So we just need to provide some browser to the visitor. Then you can consider that like use POS to publish some virtual apps. So yeah, and the feedback from our customers today is quite improved compared to the previous experience.
Yeah. So remember, it's an easy install. There's no reboots required. We've got a lot of great content, documentation, and we're here to help if you have issues or questions. Yeah.
And troubleshooting also very important. So this is also a Linux VDA tool. So we provide this troubleshooting tool. It's perform like 150 checks. We keep adding more options or more troubleshooting paths to this troubleshooting tool. Yeah. So for example, recently we enhanced the iRegister troubleshooting, or we enhanced you can dump to environment and then compare what has been changed during the past time. So all those things keep going, and we'd like to hear your feedback. And that is for admin experience. So we want to make it.
XDPing is an excellent tool. I only discovered it right at the end of my Linux deployment, and I was devastated because it would have made everything so much easier. But yes, it's very, very useful.
Yeah. Thanks for that, James.
Okay, then the last page talk about our Linux VDA product strategy, which is my work here. So how when I plan the release with engineering team. So what we focus, of course, we focus our customer requirement, but we can also group them in these 4 dimensions. One is the more distributions, or to keep chasing the latest release, and more authentication, AD join, non-domain join, different authentication, and cloud transition. Yeah, this is very hot, and it's the future direction for many customers. So we do support this hybrid many public cloud identity platform, and a lot of cloud APIs. Yeah, so and also integrate with the DaaS, the latest features. And we just talk about the admin experience, where we care about our admin experience to provide high efficiency, simplify the deployment, and empower the easy troubleshooting, all those better experience to our admin, Citrix admin. So we know, yes, your life happy and we're happy. And then HD experience, yeah, this is the key since this is we just always keep the leading position. Yeah, so for Linux VDA to keep the HDX experience always the best one.
Exactly. Yeah, we're very
Yeah.
proud of the heritage of doing Linux remoting for 10 years now, and we believe we have the industry's most comprehensive offering, but we're never satisfied, and we're always looking to improve. So again, please work with your account teams, work with your partners. We want to capture the RFEs, get them prioritized. We're here, we're listening, and as you can see, we've got a lot of great accomplishments and also a very active roadmap with Linux.
Yeah, now I'll spend a few minutes to give you a demonstration. But in fact, I already done this demonstration for like maybe 40 minutes because I'm really using a Linux desktop to do this presentation. You see, this is a Linux. I'm accessing Google Slides and playing this one, and also I can edit this Google Slide. Yeah, I see Johnny is here. Okay, and then also you can use like LibreOffice. Yeah, so here I can use a local native application to do the slides. Yeah, and then also I can share you this. I said I can play a video. Yeah, for example, screen sharing demo video. Here I have a wide screen. I put two VDA environment in the same screen. So the copy the code to another. You can say this is the college A, college B. Colleague, sorry. Here you see this screen has been shared to B, and if you just open any application, LibreOffice, and then whatever I input here is has been seen by another colleague. Yeah, this is the screen sharing.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, Terry. I mean, we delivered the presentation over the Linux VDA. We use it regularly, and it's got a lot of great capabilities.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
and this VDA really has a GPU, so now we can see some interesting this car visualizer.
Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see how it looks over the webinar.
I'm not sure through this webinar how was experience, but it looks very fluent and high resolution from my side. Yeah, so we can.
Yeah, I think the limiting factor here is probably the Zoom platform, but it looks pretty good. Nice.
Okay, so also we talk about the CAD. I do have another one, for example, this one, where is CAD. So here, if I open this first one, okay, you see this. Yeah, okay, this is the CAD design, and you can check in every different view, and you can zoom.
Looks like some kind of flashlight there.
Yeah, so it's show you how customer using it for CAD or CAD design. And I think the last one is I talk about the double hop. So here I log in with my Citrix credential, and then you can see we can double hop to Windows application. This one, for example, the Excel. Or even I can log into our Windows desktop.
Yeah, I think that's a really good use case, right? Just first hop Linux, and then you can go out to Windows there if you need to. So yeah, absolutely. Right. Maybe you're connecting from thin clients or Chromebooks or whatever you have on the endpoint, and present them with a Linux desktop that's highly capable. And then if you need to feed in some additional Windows applications, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah. So
and coming right up.
yeah, this is the WAM and profile UPM and WAM, and then let's go to the Excel.
There we go. Nice.
Okay, so I think this is a very quick demo, and yeah, I hand it back to Adam.
Great stuff. Great stuff there, Terry. So yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll just kind of wrap up with some summary items here, and then we'll have the remainder of the time for Q&A. So Linux is a great option. It really is for many use cases. You know, take the time to understand the use cases and user personas throughout your organization. I guarantee that you will find there are some that you can take advantage of the Linux VDA. It's very cost effective. It's a rich and smooth platform from an HDX experience perspective. It is admin friendly, and Linux VDA is absolutely a Citrix priority. So yeah, in summary, we can't wait to hear about your next Linux VDA projects, your applications, your use cases. We're very excited to learn more. And I'll just share a bit of information that just in the past 6 months alone, we've seen a 25% increase in adoption with Linux VDA. So this is very popular, and it's something that, like I say, applies to pretty much any organization of any size, any vertical, and at any geography. All right, and then we've got some other resources here too, in terms of some content. So how can you get started with Linux VDA, right? Hopefully you're excited about it, the potential that it can provide for you and your organization. We have a featured explain video, there's product documents and the official documentation, as well as a POC guide to get started. So you can work with those QR codes. And in terms of availability, you're more than likely already entitled to it as part of your Citrix license or subscription. It's available both for on-premises CVAD as well as Citrix DaaS, all editions essentially, except for the VDI standard, and it will share or pool licenses that you use today for your Windows VDA. You can find the full feature matrix on our citrix.com site. And with that said, I'd like to close out and appreciate everyone's time. Let's go ahead and let's make sure we get as many questions as we can in the final minutes here, James, and then we can follow up offline or via blog with some of the additional ones.
Yep, sure. We've got a few subjects floating around. Let's start with some that might hopefully be simple yes, no answers. Can you use app layering on Linux? I would think no. It's probably the answer there, is it?
Correct. It's for our Windows platform today. Yeah.
Right, that's fair enough. That's what I said. I just didn't want to look stupid in case it turned out to be the other. I've had another one question about OneDrive on Linux, but again, I think there's no native sync client, is there? You'd have to either use the web or use a third-party tool to enable that.
Yes, I believe that's the case. Maybe others know more on the call, but I believe that to be the case.
Yeah,
fair enough. I think the main sort of thing we've got floating about is, and I think it's particularly from those of us who work in kind of regulated environments, is it's fair enough to say that, you probably don't need an AV or something on Linux, right? But security teams will beg to differ, and they're very much wedded to tooling like Tanium and things like that they insist on having wherever there are user workloads, right? So, I mean, is it, should that really be almost a kind of selling point for the Linux VDA, based on the fact that security teams in finance, in medical, in defense and things like that will say, we need agents on there, whatever they may be, that will show us, what's going on, what the DLP, potential is, and things like that.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I agree. So it depends on the security level requirement and the real business use case. Yeah.
Fair enough. I've also got some questions about the AD integration side of things. I mean, I know from personal experience that joining Linux machines to AD, it's not as straightforward as it is with Windows, right? There's lots of different ways you can do it. And I know there's a lot of stuff in the Citrix documents. Is there any one particular way that you'd recommend doing that? Do you have a best practices around that? Or again, as with Linux, does it boil down to it depends which kind of Linux you're using, basically?
Yeah, I think that yeah, it's a fair question. Domain join is multiple protocols and multiple steps to use this. So it really depends on which platform you're using and what's the best practice for that distribution. For example, if you use Red Hat, then they may recommend triple SD. Yeah. But I think maybe this question we need to come offline and see what's your environment and what's your main challenge and how we can make it simple for you. But today we do have include the domain join as part of like MCS solution and also a part of the EV install. Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good. I think that about wraps it up. We've still got a few questions floating about, but some of them look like a bit kind of supporty sort of questions, which I don't really want to get into in a general forum. So I'm sure we can follow those up independently, you know, for people who are having particular issues rather than, you know, try and troubleshoot something on a live webinar is not really the best idea. So I think that covers it, but there's a lot of very interesting stuff there that I'm sure people appreciate. And yeah, there's a lot of food for thought. We've got a few people saying, yeah, we're going off to try the Linux VDA now. So I'm sure they'll have immense fun with that.
Wow, they were so excited they couldn't even wait till the end of the webinar to try the Linux VDA.
That's the way it looks. Yeah,
that's great. But yeah, no, seriously, thank you all for the time. Thank you for the interest, and let's keep the dialogue going through the various CUGC Slack channels, through discussion forums. You know, reach out to us by email, work with partner communities. We're invested in this area, and we're invested in customer success, and we're excited with the possibilities that Linux VDA can unlock.
Yes.
All right, so it sounds like you're ready for us to wrap up. So I just want to thank you all for being here today, and thank you to the Citrix team for being here. And I know some of you are up kind of late, I think, to be here today. So we really appreciate that. And thank you, James, for helping with the Q&A and all of that too. Appreciate all of you being here.
Thanks so much, everyone.
no
Thanks a
problem.
lot.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thanks.
Okay,
Have a good day.
take
All
care now.
right.
Have a good day.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.